Automotive workshop efficiency, problem-solving techniques that get results. Join passionate automotive trainer and coach Andrew Uglow as he tackles myth number 5 in our ongoing series about workshop efficiency misconceptions. In this episode, you'll learn how to identify and overcome common diagnostic challenges and discover practical strategies for improving efficiency in your daily operations. Along the way, Andrew shares some great stories, including a classic case of how one word with two very different meanings caused a major miscommunication, and how structured thinking approaches can transform your team's problem-solving capabilities. I'm your co-host Anthony Pearl, and this is the Frictionless Workshop Podcast. Let's get cranking. So, Andrew, we've come up to the much hyped myth number 5. Do you want to let everyone in on what this one is? This is a true myth that I think, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be of benefit to people even beyond working in car workshops as well. I think this is a true myth that extends everywhere in business.
You know, when you're at school and something happens and everyone stares at you and they stare at you like you're crazy. It's like, Andrew, what are you talking about? Like, have you been sniffing the glue again, Andrew? You know, like, what's going on with you? And so this myth is the myth around meeting and exceeding customer expectations. And I say that it's a true myth because it is. And I say that at the risk of being labelled an idiot, because there are some very, very clever people, doctors, like doctorates, people with doctorates and PhDs of a variety of different things who've written some very intelligent, well-researched, very clever books around customer service that have sold millions and millions of copies. And I don't disagree with what they said. I just want to add a distinction that I think they missed. And the distinction is that you don't meet or exceed customer expectations. You do, but you don't, right? It's a true myth. It's true, but it's not true. Or it's not entirely true. What you do is you install customer expectations and then exceed them. And there is a big difference between just meeting customer expectations or exceeding customer expectations and installing them. And people look at me like, well, how on earth do you install customer expectations? Well, let's rewind the process, shall we? And talk about, well, how do customers get expectations in the first place? And I appreciate in previous episodes you mentioned about when I take my car in for service, I don't expect it to come back with a whole bunch of new scratches down the side. All right, that's a given. It is reasonable for the customer to expect the car to be in the same or better condition, preferably the latter, than it was when it went in for there shouldn't be coffee cups left in it. They shouldn't be turned to doof doof FM at 9 million decibels. That there shouldn't be change in shape to any of the body panels other than what the manufacturer intended. You know, maybe there's been some finessing done. That there shouldn't be any additional harm. Like, that is a very reasonable expectation. I'm not talking about those sorts of expectations. What I'm talking about is, with customer expectations, whose voice are they listening to? Because there's a lot of voices. Are they listening to the customers who wrote the negative reviews about the place? Because, can I offer, those negative reviews aren't always accurate or have been a little bit careless with the truth. And I really like the businesses where the manager or the person responsible for that actually goes and addresses the concern directly and calls them out on stuff like that. I think that is a very sound, what's the word I'm looking for, reassuring sort of business, rather than ones that just bend over and take it. What other voices are they listening to? We have all manner of Google searches, AI searches, forums, blogs, media, who have all manner of opinions about what should or shouldn't happen, what is and isn't correct. We have their own customers' own experience. Oh, my other car never did this. I wish I had $1 for every time I've heard that. Gosh, I wouldn't be doing the podcast, can I offer? No offense. But I'd have a beach to take care of, I guarantee you.
It's such an interesting idea, though, really, of setting expectations. You know, one of my early bosses, I remember, said to me, under promise, over deliver.
Oh, for sure.
And we, too often set ourselves up for failure because we overpromise on what we're capable of delivering. And often it has to do with time. That's one of the biggest killers in business, and particularly, I imagine, in workshops, is that
we underestimate the time that it will take to do something. And, but it's the best when it happens the other way around. I know last time I got my car serviced that I went in there and they said it should be ready around, lunchtime. Great, not a problem. There was a coffee shop next door. I intended to stay there as it was too far to travel back to where I was staying. And I was quite happy to stay there. And around 11 o'clock, I get a note saying the car will be ready in 5 minutes. Fantastic. I suddenly feel like I had 2 hours back that I wasn't expecting to have.
Yeah.
And I was quite happy. If they'd have got it to me at 1 o'clock or even 1:30, I would have still been completely fine with it. But the fact that they delivered the car 2 hours early was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't they look epic? They probably knew. And can I offer the really good workshops schedule all this, and they know, short of unseen things, unseen problems, which no one has a crystal ball over. But yeah, they would do this.
Because the opposite is also true of where it happens regularly is the famously going to the doctor or the dentist. Well, if you have a 4 p.m. appointment, the chances are you're not getting in there until 4:45 at the earliest. That, and you set yourself up for that, right? That you just think, well, I'm not going to pay for parking for that bit. I'm not even going to turn up there till 4:30. It would be amazing if you actually got a phone call at 4:05 going, well, where are you? Because we're ready for you.
Yeah.
And it's not a good thing when that happens.
It's interesting that time is not the biggest complaint that customers have about customer service departments and workshops specifically. The biggest complaint is quality. You said my car was fixed and it's not. You said, I was expecting da-da-da-da to happen and it didn't happen. The whole issue around the quality of the repair and the reassurance of the quality of repair, because at the end of the day, ultimately that's what workshops sell. Sure, they sell mechanical skill. Yes, they sell time. I get it. But what the customer is buying is reassurance. They're buying reliability of their vehicle because they're busy and they can't afford not to have it. And so I will take it to a dealership who train their people, who look after their people, who pay more money to their people to ensure that their people stay and they retain all of those skills and those knowledge so that I can have those same people work on my car so I can be confident that when I pick my car up, I'm not going to need to see the dealership for another 12 months or 6 months or whatever the service schedule is. That's what I'm buying as a customer.
And I think it's particularly important to understand that most customers that are driving their car in would have zero understanding of what is happening under the hood of a car anyway.
And so can you go lower than zero?
Yeah, probably. And that's the thing, right? That you come in and you go, well, it's broken or something's not working.
Something's not right.
And so, and you're expecting quality because you're putting your complete faith in people because you have no knowledge of what it is. And, and there's a different kind of feel. It's not like, well, when you go to the doctor and your knee's gone and they put you under the knife and they fix your knee and you can feel your knees better. It's not always as easy with a car because you're not necessarily, drivers are not necessarily as attuned to a car. They're not Formula One drivers. They don't feel every nut and bolt and understand what is going on everywhere in the car. So they're relying on that quality and that assurance that things have been done and done properly.
For sure. And this is a critical part of the service professionals, the customer service people. When they hand the car back, look, here's what we did this and we did this and the tests were good and blah, 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 blah. We want to explain what we did because what we did, you can't tell for the average customer. When they drive their car in versus when they drive their car out, they might not be able to tell the difference. So how do they know they did anything? How do I know that this dealership or this workshop didn't just reach into my pocket, extract a fairly healthy sum and just polish the car or something like that and wipe things over and send me on my way? How do I know? I don't know. And so this whole commercial relationship with the customer and trust and all these different parts play out in this myth. And dealerships set themselves up by just trying to exceed the customer's expectation when the customer's expectation may not be valid. And it's like, oh, Andrew, were you allowed to say that? I mean, that's naughty, right? How can it possibly be that the customer's expectation is invalid? Well, I'm going to argue it happens more than it ought because we don't supply the customer with the information. We don't have a voice into the customer's world that is loud enough or accurate enough or trusted enough for them to go and listen to this so as they know what to expect. Now, I came across a dealership when you do your booking process. So whether you book online or you text or however you ring up, however you do your booking, you get a little video. It's maybe 30 seconds. And it's like, hey, Andrew, thanks very much for, I don't know how they do it, audio thing. Hey, Andrew, thanks very much for booking your car in on date X at time Y. We're really looking forward to seeing you. When you bring your car in, make sure you enter this driveway, this little map, and that you park here. Even if there's lots of cars, you still park here. Looking forward to seeing you on the day. And so straight away, there's all of this reduction in stress for me because I know where to go and where to park. And then the day before or 2 days before, it's, hey, Mr. Customer, so excited, looking forward, just a quick reminder, our service advisors are going to ask you five questions or 7 questions or whatever it is, and it's going to take like 3.5 minutes of your time. And so we should be all out in 5 minutes. I hope that's okay. If you've got any questions, text here or go here. And there's these voices that are installing the customer's expectation, because the last place that you install customer expectation is when the customer is standing in front of you. It's not where you do it.
The Frictionless Workshop podcast is brought to you by Solutions Culture. For details on how to get in touch with Andrew, consult the show notes below. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now, back to the podcast.
It's so interesting that you say that, and even just about the parking thing. And I'm again thinking about the fact that I've booked my car in for service, and I have 2 choices from the same dealership. They have 2 different places that I can go for service. And as it turns out, I'm almost equal distance between the 2. And I'm a little bit slightly closer to one that I've never been to than the other one. And I said to them, they said, "Oh, which one do you want to go to?" And I said, "Well, you tell me which is better for me. I'm new to this area. Which one? I've been to this one before, but I don't know about this one." And exactly what you got is what I should have got, going, well, look, it probably is going to be about 5-10 minutes quicker if you go to this one that you've not been to before. Let me send you a map of where to go, where to park, etc. But I didn't get that from them. So my default was I'd rather drive the extra 5 minutes or so to the place that I know, because I've got an expectation of how that will work, and I will just do that. And that the interesting thing is I'm kind of second guessing a little bit, but I are operating under the assumption that the place that I am going to is far busier as well.
Right.
That given where it's located is a busier area. And
is that
and
good
the
or
other
bad?
one, well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like that actually could be that it's
Super
I
popular,
probably should have been sent to the other one.
Yep.
And so, and the interesting thing too was I'd raised with them and said, look, that's fine. I'm happy to go to this one I've been to before, because I know there's a coffee shop next door and I can work from there. So I don't know whether there's a coffee shop or a waiting room or something in the other place, because I've not been there. So they didn't set any expectation for me. So therefore I've not chosen that option. And I don't know whether it's more benefit to them which one I've gone to, but I would strongly suspect that the person on reception that was taking my call had no idea in that regard. And so, they could have adjusted my expectations all along. They could have said, oh, you're going to get serviced in the same way. There's a great coffee shop next door here, or you can sit in our room and you can work from there.
Yeah.
It's actually a lot less busy there. You probably get serviced a lot quicker. If you're able to come in, 20 minutes earlier or 20 minutes later or whatever it might be. So there were none of those things that happened. And that's such an easy thing to do and to manage in a process.
Absolutely.
To set expectations. And that's the start of it, isn't it? But it sets so much of what you hope will happen during it, and to understand, even to give me an understanding and go, they know what service it is up to.
Yes.
And they would know typically how long that service takes and how many cars they've got booked in ahead of me. So set my expectation. You'll be here for probably about 4 or 5 hours, or you'll be here for 2 hours, or So actually not having all of those as unknown has meant that I've actually had to clear 3/4 of my day, anticipating that it could take longer than I think.
And here's the crunch for the dealership. They're busy. Like, they've got customers, they've got cars, they've got all this work. They're head down, tail up, under the pump the whole time, and they don't have the parts in place that allow them to do the installation of the customer expectation so as they can over-deliver. And there's certain obligations too, I think the customers need to be aware of. If you turn up 45 minutes late, that doesn't mean that you're going to get the car at the same time. And for most people, we go, well, thank you, Captain Obvious, but there are customers who don't understand that or don't want to understand that. I'm not quite sure which the case may be. There are certain obligations. You need to put the lock nut for the wheels inside the car. You can't leave it on the mantelpiece at home because it's unique for your car, and so that's going to limit what we can do. There's a whole variety of different things that people don't think about that I know of businesses that when you get your reminder, hey, Anthony, we're so excited about you coming in on Thursday for your whatever service it is, make sure you've got this. If you've got any questions, text this number. And having that conversation. And it really gets back to the relationship. And it's a commercial relationship because if you trust them, you'll pay the money. And you'll pay the money and thank them, and that's the difference, isn't it? Between a salesperson or a service professional and a mouth-breathing, pulse-maintaining individual, that you're happy to pay the money and thank them for putting their hand in your pocket because you got the value, you realize the value, and that communication, that expectation doesn't finish once they've paid. Ay caramba, don't stop there. Thanks very much. Do the customer feedback, do the customer follow-up. There's a whole variety of different things that I think get missed because our customers are so busy or we're so busy or all these different excuses that we offer. And it's like, no. If we're serious, if we honestly believe all of those books about customer service, we will upgrade from merely meeting and exceeding the customer's expectation to installing the expectation and then over-delivering. Because the difference is all the difference in the world. The real money in service department is in loyalty. That's the magic. If you have loyal customers, you couldn't pry them off with a tire lever, because they trust you and they believe you and they listen to you and they will continue to pay for that reassurance because it matters to them. And you do that by installing the customer expectation. You don't just let the customer come up with who knows what and then try and meet it. I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster.
It's like a virtual hug that you're giving the customer, and it's such an important thing. And by the way, I should point out that I wasn't being overly critical of that particular dealership, no. And in fact, that they have treated me so well that I had a choice, and that I've moved areas and I've moved back and forth between areas, and I waited till I was back in the area that I'm going to be in longer term because I wanted to get serviced by that dealership. So I actually stretched out my service probably, 4 weeks longer than it should have been done because I didn't want to get serviced in another area by a dealership that I didn't know anything about.
Because it's stressful, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And particularly nowadays where you've got these built-in services that are done through the manufacturer, that the expectation is that you have to go back to the dealership or go back to a dealership at least for it.
Yep.
And so, if you've not had a great experience and then you feel like you're stuck, it's not a great thing either.
No.
And I think that's one of those hard things that makes it even more important because it impacts as well, particularly going back to original dealership, but it impacts then whether you're wanting to buy another car from there, even though those departments may be completely unrelated to one another. The fact is, I didn't have a great experience where I originally bought the car in the service area afterwards. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I would not buy a car from that dealership again.
There is a vast amount of studies that support that, like a significant amount of studies that show that if they have a great service experience, the likelihood of buying from that dealership is very significant. It's a very high number, depending upon which study. Some are as high as 83%. So it's a thing. And so this is why we don't settle for just trying to meet and exceed the customer's expectation. That is so 1980s, Anthony. Like we're now well and truly into the 21st century. We need to be installing it. We need to be developing that relationship. We need to be making sure, I know of places that they send out a newsletter and they go, hey, our technicians just achieved this level of skill. Hey, our technician just did this. And they're always on about how clever their techs are, how resourceful they are, how successful they are. how long they've been there at service, because customers are hearing, oh, it's safe to get my car serviced there. I can trust these people. Because that's the underpinning message. It's just not using those words.
Thank you for listening to the Frictionless Workshop podcast. For details on how to get Andrew working with you and your technicians, take a look at the show notes. There's also a link to some special content you can access. I'm Anthony Pearl, reminding you to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.